Okay, I think that we will begin to thank all of you for coming on time. This is Scorebucks County's webinar on oxygen for your business, general liability, errors and omissions, and professional liability. Which one to protect your business and you? My name is Linda Zangrilli, and I'm the current chapter chair of Scorebucks County. Just to give you a few slides on who we are, just allow me a few commercials. We are, I'm going to allow Rob to go back to the beginning. Thank you, Rob. One more slide back, I believe. Okay. SCORE is a national nonprofit organization. We have 350 chapters and 13,000 members all over the country. Our mission is very simple. We're dedicated to helping small business start, grow, and succeed. We are a resource partner of the Small Business Administration. Next slide, please. We serve all business owners and entrepreneurs throughout Bucks County. We cover the entire county. We have offices in Quakertown, Lower Bucks, and in Doylestown. We are some 50 members strong. We have experience in all facets of business. We offer free mentoring services, free educational seminars, such as the one we're giving you tonight. And if you need help with your small business and you would like a mentor or just like some advice, you can visit us at buckscounty.score.org or call us at 215-943-8850. Okay, I believe that's, is there another slide, Rob? Or, okay, this is my last one. If you're interested in becoming a mentor with us, you want to volunteer, you have an expertise in a given subject matter, you'd like to present a workshop such as the one you're going to hear tonight, we'd love to have you come aboard as a member. Same website and same phone number. We welcome anyone who would like to participate and help us achieve our mission. Okay, so not to delay any longer, I would like to, first of all, welcome our seminar chairman for Scorebucks County, Mr. Ed Torello, who will take the program and introduce our speaker. Ed?
Yes, thank you very much, Linda, and thank you all for signing up. This is one of about 30 webinars that we at Bucks County will be offering between now and August of 2021. We'll be posting the complete schedule very shortly on our website so that you can put it onto your phone and or other technological instrument you might have so it alerts you to what's coming on. What we tried to do is take all of the different questions that we've been asked of different topics and sort of put together this whole 30 seminar program or webinar program. And I think you're going to find this one extremely interesting. We realize that many questions are asked about insurance by our clients. And while most of the volunteers have a pretty decent knowledge of it, Rob is actually a real professional in this industry. He has extensive business and insurance background and joined us from SCORE and has volunteered to present this insurance seminar. I'll just give you one or two highlights of his career so you can understand. He's had 40 plus years in the insurance business. He's done a number of executive assignments, and it's been with the top 100 S&P and Fortune 500 companies. He worked, for example, including with AIG, AmTrust Financial, ACE Limited, which is now Chubb, and AUI Company and their subsidiary National MGU. In addition to underwriting and marketing experience, he has been involved with underwriting audits, web technologies, and risk management. I would like to say he really does enjoy the insurance world. And with that, let me introduce Rob Purdy. Take it away, Rob.
All right, everybody, let's begin, and good evening. And I'll first start off by saying I want to thank all of you for starting a business or being in business and reaching out and working with us. It's very exciting, and I thank you for doing that because it's so good for our economy. continue to do it, and we're here to help you. So let's start with this. I'm going to start with an insurance adventure first. So in Charlotte, North Carolina, a man purchased a case of rare, very expensive cigars. He insured them. And he insured them for what? For fire. Within a month, having smoked his entire package or stockpile of fabulous cigars and not made one premium payment on the policy, he filed a claim against the insurance company. In his claim, the man stated that he had lost his cigars in a series of small fires. The insurance company refused to pay, citing obvious reasons, that the man had consumed the cigars in a normal fashion. The man sued and he won. In delivering his ruling, the judge stated that since the man held a policy from the company in which he had warranted that cigars were insurable and also guaranteed that the cigars would be insured against fire. Without denying what considered to be unacceptable, without the insurance company explaining what is an unacceptable fire, the company was obligated to pay the insured for his loss. So rather than a lengthy cost and appeals process, the insurance grudgingly accepted the judge's ruling and paid the man $15,000. However, after the man cashed his check, the insurance company had him arrested on 24 counts of arson. With his own insurance claim and as a testimony from the previous case being used as evidence against him, the man was convicted of intentionally burning the rare cigars and sentenced to 24 consecutive one-year terms. And my point there is, fun, that's a wild story. Insurance is so unbelievably wild at times, but it gets down to the language, and that's what we're going to talk about today as we go through. So I hope you enjoyed that. Oxygen. Merriam-Webster defines it as something that sustains, that keeps us. So one question that will cross your mind if it hasn't, or will be on your to-do list, is what insurance do I need from this? So I think of insurance that you have now. Home, and home I mean condo, condominium, timeshare, whatever residence you have that, you have automobile, umbrella, maybe, and life. They're all insurance that you have now, and I consider that all oxygen because you can breathe easier knowing that you have that insurance. So that's where I came. So here's what we're going to talk about today. General liability, errors and omissions, professional liability, reference to insurance companies, agents, brokers, online markets. That's where a lot of people are going to, the online markets. And I have one called miscellaneous paraphernalia, which I think you'll enjoy when we get to that. So, general liability, professional liability, and errors and omission are sometimes used interchangeably. Even when I talk today, you're going to hear the policy language that sometimes covers each one of these, but I'm going to try to help show you the differences. By the way, I should add that you will be receiving a deck of these slides from we go there. So let's take a nice breath, relax, and we're going to have it. A nice discussion now, or a presentation. So, and I'll say this many times during this webinar, you need to check the insurance policy form. For instance, the policy that we talked about with the cigars did not show what kind of fire or insurable or uninsurable fires would be. So we always check the form. What is general liability? You know, we really do hope the best for people. And sometimes we think that bad things happen to bad people, and that's where they get in trouble with insurance. But sometimes good things happen to good people. And that's why we start with general liability. It protects you if someone holds you liable or responsible for a certain incident or outcome. Why do you need it? Well, we do know that 4 out of 10 businesses will have a liability claim in the next 10 years. And those claims mostly will be slips and falls. They're the leading cause to the emergency room. Of those slips and falls, the average cost today is about $35,000. If you get sued, it's probably going to bring you up to $75,000. So the question you ask yourself is, can your business survive these costs? So if you didn't have general liability, you would have to pay out $75,000 in this example. So, and also, before you can work, other businesses, some of these other businesses or companies are going to say, show me proof of coverage. And they call that certificate of insurance. All it is a copy of your policy, but they'll call it certificate of insurance. And you'll need that to go through. All right. Standard general liability. Here are the three areas in liability that you should know that you have when you have a coverage from general liability. It does take care of bodily injury and property damage liability. Another one is personal and advertising injury. And the third, medical payments. So let's just go through those quickly. Bodily injury and property damage. This is where someone gets hurt or some property gets damaged. General liability provides protection against losses from the legal liability of insurance for your bodily injury, property damage to others. It's protecting you from someone trying to come to say, I hurt myself or my property was damaged. And I would add also that mental injuries and emotional distress can be considered bodily injuries, even in the absence of physically bodily harm. And that's a tough one for the claim, but someone can claim and say they had mental injuries or emotional distress, and this would all come under your bodily injury and property damage liability. So I'm moving to the next one for the personal advertising injury. This protects an insured against a liability arising out of certain offenses. Protects you. Someone could be liable, slanderous, false arrest, infringement on another company's copyright. Sorry about that. I was trying to get something else for us. And then I have malicious prosecution. And I looked this up to make sure I had it right. Malicious prosecution. One party has knowingly and with malicious intent initiated baseless litigation against another party. You're covered for that. Use of another's advertising idea, wrongful eviction, entry, or invasion of privacy. All of them come under the personal advertising injury, and all of them protect you from your business for general liability. Medical payments. So if a non-employee sustains an injury that takes place on your premise or exposed to your operations, it's covered. And also by that coverage, they also tend to usually do prompt settlement, meaning they pay the claim or take care of the injured person quickly without litigation. They pay it to a certain fee. They'll just pay it outright. And also it pays, I think you may find this interesting, that all necessary and reasonable medical, surgical, ambulance, hospital, look at this, professional nursing, and funeral expenses for a person injured or killed on your place or some of your operation. You're protected with this, with under general liability. What it does not cover, which is starts, and we're going to get through a little more detail with this as well, is professional errors. You make a professional error, it's not covered. Damage to your employees' property or to the employee, general liability won't cover it. Auto accident, general liability won't cover it. Other insurance will, which I'll touch briefly on, but they will not cover it for that as you go through. So why should you have the coverage? Why should you have general liability? And this is just some things I think you'll know. First is your clients will want you to have it. They're going to come to you and say, do you have general liability? If you don't show them the coverage form that you have it, certificate of coverage, they may go on to someone else because they're going to realize you're not insured. They want some kind of protection as well. And then it protects your clients who visit your workplace. So at your business, if someone comes on site, even you're a consultant that comes on site, it still protects you. And they would want to know that. So that's why you'd want to have this. And also, if you have employees, even one, and they're traveling to a third-party location, to another business or client, and they get injured, it's your job to protect them. Whether they damage someone's property or they injure themselves, you need that coverage. That's under general liability. Also, coverage in the event of, like I just said, damage to someone's client's equipment, that would be protected. All right, and then also protects you if you speak about a client in their business, because we talked before about you can get sometimes libel or slander, and this would then protect you from that if that came out. And by the way, it doesn't actually have to happen. A client can say it did happen, and that's where the defense comes in, where they have to show and prove it. And that's where claims tend to get very long and nasty. And I won't go into much claims, but that's where that would go. But it protects you when you speak about a client in their business, because they could say, you didn't speak well of me, and as a result of that, I'm going to sue you for client or for slander. All right. General liability, staying with this, does come in there's three types of policies you can get. You can buy it standalone. Just say, I want a general liability insurance policy. That's all I want. The other one is a BOP, they call, in the insurance business owner. And what happens is general liability is part of this policy. It has other coverages in it. And so as a result of that, it's more encompassing that you may have. And this may be one that you look at, or your agent may talk to you about or counsel you about having more or greater coverage than just general liability. And that's usually on the smaller accounts, is the business owner, one that's more online. The commercial package policy, usually a larger premium, somewhere above the 50,000 for premium and greater. And this has part of the policy, general liability and others. But I just want you to know that general liability can be part of any of these three. It's just you want to make sure what is it that you want as you go through it. Now, I decided I wanted to confuse you for some more. So here's some other types of liability insurance that are out there. So you'll just go through this, but I think you may find this interesting. We have directors. Insurance, by the way, can find any way to insure something. Believe me, it's probably out there if it isn't. Right now, I'm looking at reputational insurance. So we have directors and officers liability. Very key. You've heard it before. Protects the directors and officers of a company. Liquor liability. If you have where you think you or some other people are going out and you have an accident or you become intoxicated, this protects you from it. And you can think that bars and others have this as a standard insurance policy. Pollution, big deal. Pollution, right? With climate. So this also protects you from any type of liability from pollution. An umbrella, no different than a personal umbrella. It just gives you greater coverage. Policies go to a certain amount. So it may be $1 million or a $2 million top of a loss. The umbrella would take it maybe up to 5 million or 10 million that goes through. And then we have in the employee practice liability, the EPLI. And you probably heard of this. I can tell you at AIG, we first ran this and we got into the market, and we had a advertisement that came out, and it showed a young man, probably in his early 40s, and a woman, probably in her early 40s. She was sitting, this is the picture we had on the back of all the insurance magazines. She was sitting on the desk and he was standing in front of her. And the caption said something like, "We just saved the key account," or "We just landed the account. Now what?" And it talked about how people just get in trouble with EPLI. So big seller for us that went through. The other areas that don't have EPLI insurance that have is that you probably read a lot in the Catholic Church with unfortunately the things that have happened. They can't seem to get EPLI because no one wants to insure it because they know they're going to lose money. Then you have management liability, and then of course, commercial auto, which is the same thing as personal, but they tend to commercial. So if you have someone drive it. I just wanted to sidestep a little bit of that for you. We'll go back to this. So how do I get the price? How do I establish price for general liability? First, you'll have to fill out an ACORD application. Most people in insurance have no idea what ACORD stands for. And it stands for Association for Cooperative Operations, Research and Development. And quite frankly, I don't know why I would remember that. So the ACORD form is the legal form that they give to you, and you fill out information. And you put in, one of the things you put in is your name and the state and your location. So I even put in here, ever hear of redlining? This was a problem initially with personal lines because if they didn't want to write certain residents in certain areas, if they saw that address, they would decline the account, and they made an attempt. Now, state governments or the insurance departments audit insurance companies to see where they're writing business and where they're not, so they can protect people from redlining, because they would try to write business where they think they may not have as many losses. So one is you fill the ACORD out. Second is they're going to ask you, what type of business do you have? Put down for me. Then they do a classification code in general liability. And that classification code is a 5-digit code, and it reflects the type of business you're in and the type of work you perform. Key point here, under the classification codes, which you'll have to get to, as they take the code and they multiply it by a rate. And that rate is determined by either your gross sales, your square footage, your payroll per 1,000. And so I think you've heard of this before, because we probably talked to you already about your sales or revenue, what you have. And that's what you would give. You would give the revenue. Caution here is that if you say too much revenue, you pay a lot more. If you say not enough, when they audit the policy, and sometimes they audit, they'll come back for additional money. So I just wanted to tell you that that's what we have a little bit on that. So continuing that, because there's usually like 9 steps from this, as the underwriter follows the company underwriting rules. They have policies, positions, and guidelines. They're going to follow what they're told to underwrite and what they have to decline. So when you work with an underwriter, hopefully they or the agent will be able to articulate the company that they work with, what they want or they don't want. And I have another example later to show that. They also will pick an insurance company. Most national, or I should say S&P companies, have more than one insurance company that they put the business in. Why? One company may be a dividend, so you can put your policy in a dividend or your business in a dividend. Or they may want one with higher rates, one with lower rates. You want to get an idea what insurance company is being selected for you. Then they can apply credits and debits to your policy. So they have to file this with the state. They have to file with the state, how much can I credit and how much can I debit? And sometimes in general liability, that can be up to 50%. So they could take the rate and they could discount it 50, or they could take the rate and they could debit it 50. But they have to follow the rating guidelines that are filed with that company in that state. The other thing that you should know is claim history. And most of you, by the way, when you go for general liability the first time, will not have any claim history. But they'll ask you, what kind of claims have you had? Because they want to determine the claims you've had and what kind of really loss ratio, which I'll also go a little bit later, you may have as you go through the policy. The last thing is they're going to look to you as a new venture. They're going to say, all right, you're a new business. We don't know you. So we're not sure how we want to underwrite you because we don't know what experience you've had or how you've done. So you have to help prepare yourself to show them that I'm going to run a good business and I'm going to know exactly what to do. But that's what they will, and it's usually riskier. Matter of fact, I can tell you at AIG and also at ACE, I had a position sometimes where I would not write a new venture because I wanted them to get a year behind them to see how they performed. So I just say this to you, it's not uncommon, but they are a question you can ask when you're either online or talking to an agent or a broker. Do they write new ventures for general liability? Now I'm going back to the class code. Remember I said it was five codes? And by the way, as I go through this presentation, I'll do some reviews only because I think it helps. If you hear it a couple of times, it goes well. So here is and in the parens, you can see now, ISO stands for Insurance Service Office. CGL is Commercial General Liability Code. And then you have the code. So the code for a business consultant is 41677 and a carpenter is 91340. And that's how the underwriters will look at the business because they're putting the codes down. And the codes are established the same for all insurance companies. If an insurance company uses a different code, you may want to ask them why, or you give them information of that your business is not such. Now, some of these codes are used for exclusions. Exclusions mean we don't want that operation. The underwriter says, I don't want it. So a residential carpenter, he frames a house, residential house, is faulty and incurs damages. The business is covered. He frames a house, it's faulty though, and damages occurred. Business is covered. A loss occurs on the framing of a building that exceeds 3 stories high or in height. This is excluded from the GL code. So they would say, you did not tell us that when we were underwriting your policy, and therefore it is declined, and they will not pay the claim. So it goes through that as well. And I'll give you a number of examples as we go through, because I do think examples help quite a bit. So with general liability, the insurance company assumes the following: the duty to defend you. They will defend you for a claim. And they will indemnify you, meaning they're going to pay you for the damages you lost. But the company's going to try to settle reasonably for a clear claim. They like to settle low. Easy math. Insurance companies make their money when they write policies, and they lose their money when they pay out claims. And everything else is fringe, but that's how basically a company's trying to survive. Am I writing more premium and not pushing as much out or losing as much? So I'm coming to not the end, but just part of the GL. So liability coverage for many of the things that can go wrong as a result of such a business, which you can see that we have. Now, of running a business, such as property, bodily injuries to anyone who doesn't work for you. Key. And personal advertising injury, copyright infringement, slander, liable. All of that is covered by GL. Now, it goes through bodily injuries and associated medical expenses. They don't work. Property damage, non-physical damage. A lot of people don't realize that and I say it a couple of times for you, being liable or slanderous or personal advertising injury. That happen. Don't forget web pages. That can also, they'll talk about that you slandered them or they feel that. Now, general liability is a good safety net, no matter how big or small your business is and will be. That's why it's often considered, and I put it here, is the ultimate business starter policy. So I just want to help you with that. And I'm going to go to professional liability, and we'll go through there. Now, professional liability, we've talked about general, now we're going professional. It's specific to your professional work or services. And I really do think for most of you on this call, your decision-making is going to be, am I general liability or professional liability? And we'll get to errors and omissions. Professional liability, that's specific to your professional work and services. It's what you do. It's what you specialize in. Think of it as malpractice insurance for different professions, trying to protect you. I tried to put that in. It covers you when you know the client says, I'm not happy with your work because they feel they suffered a loss. Now, the coverage in professional includes cost and lawsuits that I have here. He didn't deliver on promised services, negligent on professional services, mistakes, omissions, incomplete, shoddy work. Even if you didn't do it, they can feel that you did. These can be extremely expensive. They can happen even if you don't do anything wrong, like I just mentioned. An unhappy client can easily take you to court if things go poorly in their eyes. And that's somewhat, I think all of us probably have talked about the litigation in our society today, that even though you think you have it locked down, people can sue for anything at any time. What it gets into is the cost. What's the expense to go to court? So that's I wanted to start with that. Now, professional liability can protect you against alleged, that's key, or actual. So if you allege people are coming for errors and omissions, this professional liability will protect you. And here's an example, a little bit of overstating. See, errors and omission is another coverage I'm going to talk about, but in professional liability, they will talk about errors and omission as well. That's where they start to overlap and they can get confusing. And that's what I hope I don't do, is confuse you with all this, but they do overlap. And that can occur while you're giving incorrect advice or omitting a piece of information, failing to deliver your service for a delivery in your time frame. All this is protected under your professional. So here are some examples. I'll just let you look at that for a moment as we go through this. Now, I think examples helps. These are the ones I put up. So if you're an engineer or designer, you could be sued for misrepresenting renderings or ordering the materials that can't be used. They sue you. Project managers can sue for project delays, cost overruns, after they forgot to sign off. Massage therapist sued by a client for reported tissue damage following a massage, even if the therapist stopped the massage immediately after the onset of pain. Medical billing, putting the wrong codes in. Public notaries, notarizing a document because none of the required fields were completed. This is just a handful of innumerable scenarios in which a professional liability could cover your expenses and damages that result. I'm just trying to give you some thoughts as you go through that. So, what does it cover as it goes through? And I have what I want to go through with that. So, alleged and actual negligence. Again, alleged, it can go through that you have it. Defense cost, I have a little bit later to go through, but it will cover it. It will cover alleged negligence and defense costs. That's when you're going to court. And personal injury, again, when you're liable or you slander somebody. Temporary staffing, independent contractors. At some time, it may be more cost effective for you and your business to hire an independent contractor or temporary staff to get something done. It could be lower expense for you. That makes sense from the financial part. However, once they're working for you, in a sense, for the assignment, they need to be covered, and this is one way you can cover them is through the professional liability as they go through. Also, professional will cover claims arising from services. That's a little early in your business career now, unless you've been in business for a while. And if you had a claim, this could step in and also help arise from past claims. So I'm going to go with claims for a moment. You can reopen a claim. Do not feel that if you have a claim and it ends and you're paid, claims are not necessarily always closed. Claims organizations ask for what they call reopen. So I tell you that because sometimes you may have a loss. This is whether it's personal or commercial. If you get paid, do not feel you cannot go back and say, wait a minute, something else happened, and I want still coverage for it. They can open the claim. Now, in workers' comp, you can reopen a claim, believe it or not, 20 years later. In property, you probably can get away with maybe 2 years later to open it up, but you can open them. And I know both at AmTrust and Chubb or ACE and AIG, I always ask the claim reports how many reopen. You'd have closed, open, and then reopen. So I didn't mean to go off and tell you a little about that, but I just tell you that for temp staffing, independent contractors, maybe think of it, or the services provided in the past. And then you have worldwide coverage. And worldwide coverage, I have some examples for this as well that may help for professional liability. So architects and engineers sent overseas to create buildings and infrastructure. If that's something you do, you go overseas, this will cover for you. Consultants could be, or freelancers sent to other countries to implement something, this would cover you. Global IT, technology professionals working in multiple places, this will cover for you. Personal trainers hired to work for high-profile clients who travel frequently, this will cover you anywhere in the world. And the last one was artistic professionals, photographs, videographers. They go to distant lands to take whether video or pictures they go through, they can be covered as well. These are just examples that I give to you, but they are all under worldwide coverage. And the point to remember is that if you have worldwide coverage or you traveling in the world, you must file the claim in US for it to start. You cannot file the claim in another country. You would have to come back to the United States and file it there. And that's the only thing I want to give to you on that point. So what doesn't professional liability not cover, right? So first, bodily injury or property damage. It doesn't cover that, but you know what does? General liability. Fraudulent acts, not covered. If you're fraudulent, dishonest, criminal, not going to cover it. Now, what will happen is that an insurance company will fight for you, and as they get through this and they find out, wait a minute, it was a fraud, you weren't telling us the truth, they may ask for money from you, but they're not going to fight for you anymore in the claim or the coverage. Employment matters. This is back to EPLI, the Employment Practice Liability, or employment matters is also workers' comp. Workers' comp is a separate policy altogether as well. So if professional liability is not going to cover that, that would be covered under workers' compensation. And workers' compensation is in 46 states. The other four are 46. The other four are run by the state governments. They go through. And then false advertising. If you've done that, they're not going to cover you for that. And then the other services that I found and read to remind myself is that they're not going to cover anything that's medical, nursing, legal, actuarial. Regardless of the occupation, if it falls on any of those products, they're not going to cover it. But it's not going to be done from that. And I have a tip there. There may be additional exclusions. Read the policy wording. And I can tell you that if you get a policy and you're not sure how to read it, I do hope you reach out to me and I will work with you on it. I would enjoy that from it. Now, how do we calculate your premium? We talked before in GL about the 5-digit code and the things they go through. So here are the first 5 that you have. They first do your industry and the services you offer. In other words, they're looking for, insurance companies looking for what damage can happen, what potential damage can happen from your business. For instance, industry, a optician and an ophthalmologist. An optician would have less exposure than an ophthalmologist. So the ophthalmologist would have a higher premium. So they want to look at your industry and what you're doing in there. That's 1. 2 is the experience in your field. They're going to say, okay, how many years have you been doing this? So don't forget, when you do this, if it's coming to you, how many years have you been doing? Don't think about your business that you just started or you've been in business for a year or 2. Think about what you did before. That counts for experience, because the less experience goes back to that new venture concern that insurance companies will have. But that's going to be part of your professional liability. Then you want to look at the types of clients you have, because some clients that you may have can be more. Let's think of a software engineer or software. You're in software and you're out and you work with large clients and you're building software. If something goes wrong with that software, maybe millions of customers are impacted by that. That's what they're going to look at when they're looking at your premium. What type of clients do you have? And they also do the number of key employments or key employees that you have. How many have you identified? And the more you call key, the more they have a concern that some kind of liability or loss may occur. And business location. So I did tell you about redlining earlier, so I'm going to come back to a little bit of that kind of thought. Insurance companies do scan or do map out claim areas. So I can tell you that at AIG and at ACE, we looked at Philadelphia, 5-county area, and Pittsburgh as areas that had high claim volume, that people would try to go for a lot more claims and higher, and be more legal issues. But if you rode in mid-state, or if you rode in Northeast, or meaning up toward the Allentown area, that we found worked a little better because of claims. So as much as that it doesn't think happen, it does happen. So that, and every insurance company looks at where they are. So they're going to ask you from that of where your location is. Now, it continues on because there's 10 of them in this for the insurance premium. They look at policy limits. So I'm going to show you in the next slide from that, and deductibles, which I also will show you deductibles. So you may have this on your homeowners. And I don't mean to say home. You could have condominium, a townhouse, any type of residential property you have. You may have a deductible, meaning you pay that before the claim starts to be paid. And then the other thing they do for insurance premium is they do inclusions, exclusion policy. So they're going to look to say, okay, when you built as you go through this, do you want to have another policy of employment practice liability? So if you have other endorsements for insurance coverage, that will reduce your professional liability cost. But they're going to look at that. Claim history. They want to see again how you have performed. If after 2 years you're in business, which I hope you go for 50 or long, or as a legacy, they're going to look to see if you have what kind of claims you have. When you have no claims, you're a great insurance, because they're going to feel, some may say any day, but usually that means you've done quite well. And I would think primarily on your residential insurance, probably many of you have never filed a claim and you've paid them, the premium. So they will look at claim history. And then payment plan. Payment plans, they simply will give you either monthly payment, annual. it's really more, how do you want to manage your money as you go through this, as you go through from it. So that's what I have on calculating it. Now, the other consideration that I want to show you is the higher the limit of liability, the higher the premium you have. Right? Makes sense, I'm sure, to you. So here are the basic limits, and not basic, here are pretty much the limits in professional liability. And I have occurrence and aggregate, and I'll come back to that in a moment. But the 250 is 250,000 over 250,000, 500 over 500, which is $500,000, then a million, then a million, 2 million, and then 2 million. And you can go other. Then you start to really create your own policy from that. Occurrence means the first number, that's all they're going to pay, that amount for the entire year. So you could have 10 claims, and if they add up to be less than $250,000, you're fine. If any claim starts to take the total sum of claims over $250,000, you're on your own. So let's go up to the million, 2 million. You have $1 million for occurrence. I really don't hope you don't have any of this, but just to explain the example, they take the number of claims you have and they'll pay up to $1 million, or $1 million for each claim. They'll pay up to $1 million, but they will not go past 2 million. So in theory, you could have 2 claims at $1 million each, and they would go. Now, the other thing else I wanted to mention to you is that the aggregate will come. Well, I'll tell you in a minute. The policy is offered as a per occurrence limit with an annual aggregate, which I think I'm just was trying to say as well. I think you have that. Now, you may want to consider in professional liability a thing called claims made or occurrence. What I just told you earlier is an occurrence policy. Claims made is when the claim happens, you file it. Now the premium can be less, but you file the claim when the claim is made, and the difference is claims made can be after the year that you're in. So if you have it for 1 year, January to January is an easy example. That if you have a claim, if you have an occurrence policy, I'm jumping. Claims made can be made anytime after that year, that policy year. Occurrence policy, you have to make the claim in that policy year. So if you make a claim after the expiration date of that policy, they will not honor it. Now, if it's the last day of your policy, and I think they give you, usually it's like 7-8 days to report it initially, and maybe a month as you do, they may decide what they're going to do based on the claim. But they do tend to work with just the claims that happen in that year. I probably didn't do well. If you have a claim, an occurrence claim within the year, and the year goes by and you're a month out or so and you put the claim in, you'll most likely be covered from that. And then claims made can go, you can find it a couple of years later, you can say, wait a minute, that happened to me. So, what would be a good example for you from professional is I'll just take a workers' comp. You're working and you're lifting, you're in lumber and you lift your back and you say, I can't take this anymore. My back hurts. And you go to another company. And a year, 2 years later, your back really hurts. That happened when you were at the first company. And that's where the claim would start to go back to. And then there's ways, and then they would look at you, they would evaluate you, and then they would decide how much they're going to pay, or the other company would have to pay. But my point is that you can open the claim. Deductibles range anywhere from $1,000 to $25,000, usually for that. So meaning that you'd pay $25,000 before they start paying it. Now, I think this is probably the most thing that can maybe help you is you have to decide when you talk to an agent or online, what limits do you want? One way you could get that, an unbiased approach, would be to call the profession that you're in, call the association. Call the association that writes that, not that you're a member of it, but the association from that, and ask them, what are most people getting for professional liability? What premium? Because that can help determine what premium you want to come in, because you want to be covered. If you have a $500,000 claim and you're at $250,000, you have to pay the difference. So and then the other thing is you don't want to buy too much, because then hopefully you'll never need it, but you'll be paying extra premium when you don't need that. And by the way, when you ask for a quote from online or from an insurance agent, you can ask for what would it be at different limits, so you get an idea of what the cost would be and what do they charge for each ability to go up. All right. Now, some other considerations that I continue here. The insurance company, they're going to pay legal defense against the claims and judgments against you up to a limit of the policy. That goes back to what we just talked about. But they're going to pay it for you. They're going to fight you and they're going to pay it for you. And you may be able to include professional liability in a commercial package policy. That's the one I said is like $50,000 or more. It's a little bit larger package. They can include that in there if you need that as an endorsement. And believe me, every policy you have will have a number of endorsements attached to it. And many of them are from the company, and many of them are from the state saying they need to attach the endorsements. Now, professional liability is not included in an in-home business policy or a business owner policy. It's not there. So if you have one, you can look at the language, but it's not going to cover the professional liability. And I just put this statistic in that to give you an idea of where we're talking about premium. That 70%, 69% pay less than $1,000 a year for coverage, and for professional liability, and 80% of that goes for GL, so it's even less. So you can get an idea that professional liability is a little bit more expensive than general liability because it's a little bit more narrow as you go through that. So how are they alike? Because I'm sure you probably thought of this. So how do I take the GL and the professional? How are they the same? On the next slide, I have how they're different. So in this one, you may require to have one of these policies. So a carpenter needs a general to get hired. To get hired, he needs a GL policy, while a designer may require a professional liability policy. Two different things. That's where you're going to start thinking about what policy do you need. Now, the GL and the professional, they're common risk that businesses face. They're common, but they are different risks. And they both protect you from financial fallout of getting sued, lawyers' fees, court costs, any settlements or judgment. They do protect you from that. They're different. They cover different types of risk. I thought you'd maybe like this example. GL policy will help cover a spill of your latte on your client's new 3D printer. A professional liability policy will come in handy if your client loses money because of the work you did or advice you offered. Are a little different. They're examples. So, which one's right for you? You need general liability. You run a business, any business, regardless of size, can benefit from this policy. It becomes more important the more you interact with the public. More important with the public. You need professional if you provide services or expert advice to clients for a living. If clients rely on you for knowledge, skill, expertise, they could suffer a great loss if you don't deliver what you promised. You need professional. It's important to understand which liability policy you need so you have the right protection as you go through. So I hope that helped a little bit. I put this in, so I'm not sure. GL is the most basic kind of business insurance, and virtually every business should have it to protect themselves. 3 categories: property damage, bodily injury, personal and advertising injury. I also added this one. GL covers third-party claims. Third-party claims, that's the person that is coming to you, that's suing you. You have yourself, your insurance company, and the person suing you is the third party, which means that someone else is blaming you for their injury or damage. So I thought I'd give you some more examples. I think examples help a little bit. I hope that you feel that way. So a contractor doing a kitchen and their workers moving around equipment and breaks a large window. The contractor's GL will cover the cost to replace the customer's window. An IT consultant is meeting with a client to discuss a project. As the client gets up to leave, he trips over a cable, injures his wrist. The consultant's GL policy would cover the customer's medical costs and lost wages. First time I put that in. If you're out of work, you're not getting paid. So there is a part of lost wages. And some of you may know that. I hope none of you ever had a really bad injury. But if you had some, you may understand this from your experience. At a hair salon, one of the stylists is making false and disparaging statements about a one-time client. Gets back to the client who sues for slander. The GL policy covered defense costs as well as any settlement or judgment. Professional, sometimes called errors and omissions, coverage protects you against claims or lawsuits from what professionally you've done. I started out by saying that sometimes this crosses over, and they do, but professional, they sometimes call it E&O. And the reason I say that to you is that if you talk to an agent or if you're online with someone and they start talking about E&O, just simply say, are you talking about professional liability or errors and omission? Because they're two different things as they go through. Now, if you give advice to customers, you should have professional liability. If you did something you shouldn't have done, or you didn't do something you should have done, an omission, you should have it. It covers personal injury like libel and slander. And the same thing professionally, you can hear the same words that we have in general liability. And I know that you're probably saying this is confusing. It is confusing, but they do stand alone when they come to the policies that will go. And I think I've said to you that you look at the language that will help you. Then professional liability, it'll cover you even if you hadn't made a mistake. I said before, people can sue at any reason for anything at all because they think they can get something from it. And you've heard of people do that, and it's expensive for the legal system, but they do it. So I thought I'd give one more. So a business consultant says, hey, I think we can eliminate several jobs and reduce expenses. You'll get more money. So the client reduces the expenses, but doesn't eliminate any jobs. Profits decline. Client says to the consultant, you gave me bad advice, sues for negligence. Professional liability would cover their defense costs and damage award. All right. Here's some other business insurance terms you heard about. I just thought I'd bring them up. You heard this before. I'm bringing it up again, the BOP. The BOP has general liability, plus it'll have your business property, like equipment and tools. So that's included when you can buy a business owner. Cyber insurance from any type of cyber breach. You've heard a lot about cyber. This insurance is taken off. Many people have it. Work comp, I talked to you before a little bit about the medical costs and wages, if they get that. There's a big issue now with workers' comp because sometimes people get injured. And if you get injured at work on workers' comp, you get paid like almost 60% of a fixed amount. And sometimes it's enough money that workers don't want to go back. And we can't get them back to work. And the whole idea is to get them back to work, get people healthy to get back to work. Short-term liability. If you want for a specific period, months, weeks, days, or even hours, you can do a cover. I wrote, not in this election, but 2 other elections before that, I wrote the Republican National and the Democrat National Committee. I wrote both of them. And they had a lot of volunteers. But I covered them, but I only covered them for a certain amount of time. And we did have claims, but nothing serious. But we did do that. So I just say to you, that is not uncommon that you can do a short-term liability on that. Now, let's go to errors on omissions. Now, errors on omissions, what does that cover? Before we had general liability, professional liability. Now we're getting errors on omission. A dissatisfied client says, overwork, mistake, omissions can cover your legal expenses, including the cost of a settlement and judgment. They all say this. It also provides coverage for work mistakes and oversights. I want you to, one of the things I'm going to say at the end of this is for thinking of yourself, what exposures you may have. If you think this could ever happen to you, then you'd want errors on omission coverage. So you make work mistakes, oversights. Undelivered. And I'm going to go through these quickly. Accusations of negligence, missed deadlines. So here's the first one on a work mistake. A real estate agent makes an error on the MSL sheet, incorrectly listing a home's square footage is more than it is. The home buyer buys it, realizes after he bought it the error of purchasing the home, and sues the agent. The real estate agent's E&O policy would cover that. Undelivered services. An insurance agent fails to procure adequate commercial auto insurance for a client, despite promising to do so. I got it. When a client gets in an accident and goes and makes the claims, they're surprised to find themselves uninsured. They sue the insurance agent for failing to secure the appropriate coverage. The agent has E&O coverage, covers them. Acquisitions of negligence. A client hires a network security company to protect their customers' data, but a data breach exposes the names and credit card details to thousands of customers. The client believes the network security company should be able to prevent the incident and files a negligent lawsuit. Again, covered by errors and omissions. Missed deadlines. A tax preparer fails to file a client's tax return before the deadline. Now the client is forced to pay a costly fine. To recoup the fine, what does he do or she do? She sues the tax preparer for missing the deadline that they have. So these are just some examples of what errors and omissions will cover. Now, it does not cover, which you should know. First thing, customer injuries or property damage. Doesn't cover that. So a client falls and breaks an arm at a digital marketing company or agency. GL covers that. So if that happens, GL will cover it. Employee injuries. So property manager is injured while inspecting an apartment building. He needs medical attention and time off to recover. So he goes to workers' compensation. Damage to business property. A fire at a web hosting company damages computers and servers and other important equipment. A BOP, a business owner policy, helps quickly replace the damaged property. Employee discrimination lawsuits. A real estate agent accuses an agency of routinely giving male agents their properties with the highest commissions. She files a gender discrimination lawsuit against the company, which she uses the EPLI policy to recover her damages. was driving his own car with a client. He rear ends a pickup at a stop sign. When the other driver sues, the consultants hired a non-owned auto insurance helps pay his legal bills. A freelance software designer helps a healthcare company develop a health monitoring application for its patients. A glitch in the program contributes to a patient injury. That'd be terrible. When a healthcare company sues, the developer turns to product liability insurance. My examples here is that it doesn't cover it. There's other insurances that would do this, but these things actually do happen as they go through. Now, exclusions. Exclusions is an operation that's not covered. I think I gave one example about the carpenter going up through the third story. That happens is an exclusion is an operation not covered. It won't pay for lawsuits. E&O will not pay for lawsuits that allege discrimination or abuse against clients from that. And also it only covers lawsuits filed against your business by clients. If you file a lawsuit against a client who refuses to pay you, E&O won't provide coverage. You can fill the gaps in your E&O coverage with insurance endorsements. To make sure you have the coverage you need, contact an insurance agent or go online or feel free to call me. But you can fill the coverage or the open areas in. So what goes into an E&O premium? The reason I went through each one of these is I think the more you know what goes into premium, you'll understand a little bit better of the policy you're getting and what you want. So the state or domicile, that's again, you've heard state before. Guess what? First thing, same thing here. They're going to look at what state you're in because they're going to think about what kind of claims are happening in that state. Without a doubt, they do this. The second thing they're going to do is your gross commissions, revenue, income. Now, that's easy. If you have a lot of transactions, big gross incomes, commissions that you go through, they're going to be worried about that. You may make an error. So that's the concern they have as they go through that. Breakdown of business activities. They want to know what's the likelihood can happen of their business activities. So if someone does residential properties, manages 1 to 4 properties they manage, compared to a brokerage firm, they're going to rate that brokerage firm higher because there's more activities going on that could cause an E&O, an error or omission. And then the next one I have down is the number of professionals. Same kind of thing before, more volume. If you have a lot of professionals that are working, kind of like key employees, that go through, there could be an error and it could be more premium due. So they have that. And then the one that goes through all insurance policies is the claims. What kind of claims have you had? Any incidents, any disciplinary actions that you come in, that you go through. And what they do is they perform a loss ratio. And let me just tell you quickly a loss ratio. And I really hope you're always at 0 losses. But if you have a loss, they're going to take the amount they paid in the claim. So if you had a loss in the claim, it was $50,000, and they would tend to look at your premium that you paid for the policy, and they would make that a loss ratio. And they would then look at the loss ratio. Now, if you're paying $1,000 an annual premium, $50,000 loss, without a doubt, it's a loss leader. Meaning it's going to take me quite a while, the insurance company, to get my money back because I had a loss. But with insurance companies, it's maybe I write a lot of premiums of that size, and then I'm good to go in a sense. So I know that when I had the small business at AIG for the nation or nationally from that, my goal was if I wrote a lot of small premium, I didn't get that many that had losses. So it's more of how I could get the premium. And then we had the losses. We had losses from that we would. But I had 116,000 policies. And the loss ratio, when it's trended out, I guess the loss ratio trended out, was probably just about 45, 46%. Meaning every dollar I had, 46% or 46 cents went to losses. Then you tie in expense, interest, and others, but they do look at that. Sorry, I was getting excited about that for a moment. Anyway, that's another part of it. All right, so what are the difference of E&O and GL? And I start talking that way because I think you'll get the language down, and I don't mean to, but insurance is so, like many other businesses, have their own language. So both are liability insurance, errors and omissions and general liability, both of it. Both protect you and your business. And they both protect you from third party. That's someone else. The difference is what triggers the policy for the claim. Errors and omission, if you were negligent in your professional duties, that's when it triggers the claim to protect you. If GL triggers, if your business caused bodily harm, property damage, or other personal injury, that triggers for them to come in and defend you. I think before I told you the duty to defend. So who do I go to for this coverage? Where do I go? Where do I go for this coverage? Like a licensed agent or insurance broker. You've heard the terms. What's the difference? Both insurance brokers and insurance agents act as intermediaries between you and insurance companies. They act in between. They are brokering business or working with carriers to go in between. And sometimes agents and brokers don't have access to all the companies. You may hear of a company that comes on, whether it's television or someone talks to you. Sometimes they may not have access, but there's ways around to try to get access, but they not be able to get there. But you've heard of it. They're both licensed to sell insurance products, and they're required to abide by the laws and regulations by the state insurance. If not, they will lose their license, and it can be removed permanently as well. That really rarely happens. Remember, they'll have E&O coverage for them. The difference between a broker and an agent is who they represent. Insurance brokers represent you, while insurance agents represent a number of companies. So that's the difference for you to know. The broker will just go one-on-one. An agent will represent a number of companies they go through. Doesn't matter. The broker may have to go to different companies, but they tend just to work you, and the agent works with others. Now, the role of the insurance company. I tell you this because a lot of people don't really understand what all this means. Every insurance company is rated. They are rated by either AM Best, Fitch, Moody's, or Standards & Poor's. Remember I talked about S&P 500, S&P 100. No different than the Fortune 100, 500 or 100. They are rated, and they rate from A++ or A++, all the way down to non-rated. And the lower the alpha, I should say the higher the alphabet in a sense, means that they're probably not as strong. So you should just know that. So whatever company you have, you may want to know what's their rating. Now, the insurance company has to provide coverage and address the claims by law. You put a claim in, they have to address it. They have to put the coverage in as well. That's what their policy language holds them for. And is regulated by the Department of Insurance. Maybe called the Office of Insurance by the state. Every state has one, and they're done there. Commission. I want you to know this. So the policy that the agent or the brokerage receives has a commission to that policy. And for the business we're talking about, it's somewhere around 20%. It can be less, it can be up to 25, depending how that agent or how the broker is dealing with the company. But they have that amount of money in that. So let's just take $1,000, and if they get 25% or 25%, you get an idea of what they're taking. Why do I tell you that? It's because an agent can contribute their commission to help with price. But they do get a commission from the insurance company. So, what does it mean to be direct or online? And this is where we're going. Why? Because they are going direct to you and are not working with an agent or a broker. So they cut out the commission. So they have more room to probably give you a lower price. Lower premiums, maybe less coverages. They make it easier for you, but you really get no professional advice. That's the downside. You don't have someone defending for you and going through and trying to find the best for you, but online. And not every insurance company is online yet, but they probably will. And you probably check already before you even talk to an agent. And good for you. That's exactly what you want to do. Now, this comes up quite a bit as I talk with clients about sole proprietorships. Should I have a sole proprietorship or should it be LLC? How should I form my business? If you form a sole proprietorship, you are fully liable. If a business debts become overwhelming, you, as the owner, will be impacted. You have no protection. It goes directly to you. Self-employment taxes apply to sole proprietors as well. Business continuity ends with the death or departure of the owner. So if that happens, the death, your business ends. Raising capital is difficult. And I'll just step aside here for a second. One of the things I wanted to make sure I accomplish is how we at SCORE can protect you. So as you go through this and you, again, your drive of innovation, your entrepreneurship, it's excellent. How do you get protected? And that's what, as the number of the clients I've worked with, it makes me feel that I want to make sure you're protected. And I think if you have sole proprietorship, you are going to be exposed. Just know that from there. What about my homeowner's policy? You'll be maybe thinking that as you go through. It may provide limited coverage that is stored in your home for business property. Some. You may have to pay a deductible, but it'll cover some of it. But not every homeowner provides coverage for business property. Not every one. But again, I think I said earlier, look at your policy and it will tell you as you go through from there. Defense cost. I mentioned earlier. So what does it mean? Defense cost. It refers to all the costs defending against a lawsuit. So lawsuits, hiring a lawyer, court fees, investigations, gathering facts, filing legal paperwork, and probably other related costs. All that is paid to defend you. That's defense costs. They have a duty to defend. They have to step up and defend you. And an indemnity, which means payment. They're going to give you money for the damage that happened when they go through on their defense. Important to know for defense costs. And that will be clearly stated in the policy. So your next steps for Oxygen. Think about your business. How does it interface with customers? How do you interface with them? Think about that. What can go wrong? And maybe you've done this already, but what could go wrong? And you know what? I know you're thinking of so many things. Startup capital, marketing. How do I manage all this and go through? And this is one other part that we're trying to hopefully help you protect it. What can go wrong? How can you get protected? If I'm brought into a legal suit, what protection do I think I need? Next, now start your discussion with a licensed agent, broker, check online, or give me or give SCORE a call. And I thank you for the time from that.
Thank you, Rob. That was great. A lot of really good information. We do have a few questions to get to.
Perfect.
Okay, one very commonly missed and almost not known oxygen for a small business owner is disability expense insurance. Can you please elaborate more on this type of insurance?
The question is asking about disability insurance.
Yes, disability expense insurance.
I think that I will get back to the answer. That's more of a health related or part, and I don't have health insurance, but I will find out the answer for that and put it back
Okay.
with our slides. I'm
Okay.
sorry, I don't have health insurance.
All right, that's actually from one of our mentors, so we can answer that.
Okay.
Does employee traveling to client's location get covered by workers' comp insurance?
If I'm a worker and I travel on business to another site and I have workers' compensation at the business, I am covered. I'm covered for it. I can tell you, let me just elaborate because you may like this little story. So I would write a lot of independent contractors or truckers, and they drive everywhere, right? And so they would get injured, unfortunately, sometimes, or they'd be sitting in the truck too long or whatever it may be, and they would drive to the most lucrative workers' comp state and put their claim. So that can happen as well. So yes, to that question, you're covered. You're covered and feel free.
Okay, we have another from Karen. She says, I'm starting a limited food establishment home baking business. Would I need professional liability coverage, E&O, in case someone claims to have an allergic reaction to a product that I make? Also, would I need it if I do classes such as cookie or cake decorating? I would be doing it in the customer's home post-COVID.
Two parts to that question.
Yeah.
The first part, I would tell you it's probably professional liability you're going to need. And I would say to whoever asked that, if they could reach out, I could talk to them in more detail. I think you need professional first, over E&O. And then the second one was you're traveling to people's homes to do was it cooking?
Cookie or cake decorating.
Right. That can be either professional as well or even general liability from that that you go through. Because what would happen is if you go to someone's home and they say, "Oh, look what you damaged," or "Look what you made me sick," or whatever, that would come under the general liability. It also would cover some of the professional, but if you, I think professional first would be it. You could do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
And from Bruce, if I have these insurances and I am a sole proprietorship, wouldn't the insurance cover me in the event I were sued?
What insurance would he have?
If he had the ones that you referred to, I guess he wants more of an explanation on the ones that.
If he has a sole proprietorship,
yeah.
If he's a sole proprietorship, then if he has those policies in place, he would be liable for the coverage because the insurance coverages are going to know he's an individual because his business is to him, and they would come across and say it's more of a personal business, not ours. You can say you're in business, but not. Again, I would ask Bruce to feel free to email me, and we'll set up time to talk. Like lately talk to him for more about that. But my first reaction is he's not going to be covered.
Okay. And I think we have a few more.
Sure.
Let's see. Are the premiums generally higher for new companies just starting and with $0 revenue?
The new companies are usually higher because they're new ventures, and the insurance companies don't know them. They don't know how they're going to perform. So they're usually higher unless you can convince them, and that's by writing on the ACORD form all the experience you've had and the measures you take to be safe. The second part of that, forgive me, I got tired. What's the second part of that, Linda?
Okay, are the premiums generally higher for new companies
Yeah.
just starting with $0 revenue?
If they have $0 revenue, they will do two things. They will decline the account, say they don't want to write it, or they will say, okay, here's the premium. I realize you don't have any revenue, and I'm going to insure you, but this is what's going to cost you to do that. So I would ask that person who put that question in that when they talk to someone, they have to ask, will they write me? And will they do new venture? Here's my new venture. But when they come to rate my premium, to come up with a calculation for premium, I have nothing to give them. I have no revenue to give them. I have nothing they can multiply. And then they may just give a flat example. And that may be more, and this gentleman, I think it was a gentleman, or the person may have even better luck online.
Yeah. Okay. And another one, do I need professional liability for independent contractors or freelance writers? And should I request that these workers carry their own insurance?
The answer to that is the independent contractor should carry their own insurance.
Okay.
They should carry their own insurance. If they don't, so if they don't carry it and they say, well, I don't have it, I can't get it, or I can't cover it, then you need to tell your insurance, whatever insurance you have now, that you're covering independent contractors, and they'll make the policy changes, but you'll probably end up paying a lot more for the exposure, and you then would want them to pick up their part of it. But the easy answer is they get their own coverage. And independent contractors, there's so many more people going independent contractors today. It's just that's the answer. So yeah, and there again, I like to certainly feel free to chat with the person.
Okay. Could you elaborate on insurance endorsements a little?
Sure. I mentioned that the endorsements will come two ways, one by the company and one by the state. So the state will have certain coverages they want to make sure that's on the policy. For instance, what could that be? How you have to pay, when you have to pay, how the premium was determined. It may be any one of those kind of standard forms on every one. It could be the terrorism endorsement. Well, unfortunately, when we have the 9/11, out came an endorsement, and that endorsement says that we can charge more money if we want to or not, but it's an endorsement that's added, automatic. Then the company may say, I want to add certain endorsements to this to make sure the client or the customer knows I'm not going to be exposed because I'm going to have, I'll know what insurance I'm really seeing. So they'll limit, the endorsements may limit the product or expand it. And that could be, the endorsement could be, you cannot go over the third story floor, third story. You cannot go over that. So yes, there are some examples. I would tell you that if you want me to get examples, I can, Linda, and send out to everybody, but that's just one of, and I'm glad that whoever asked me, I'm glad you said that, because every insurance company looks at some of these coverages differently. And when you get the endorsements, they are slightly different. That's why I know I'm saying it too much, but it's like a contract or anything else. You want to read it over, but they do vary slightly from that. Okay.
Okay. Well, I think that we've come to the end of the questions and the hour that we promised everyone this would be. I would like to thank you. Certainly informative, a lot of really, really good information. All of the people who are on the line will get a copy of the presentation. We also recorded it. So if you missed anything or you'd like to refer to those slides, you definitely will get a copy. And if you have any additional questions, I see that Rob has his email address on the screen here. Of course, any of us are available at buckscounty.score.org. You can find us in the member directory. So if you have any questions at all that weren't answered and you just want to pursue this a little further, please contact us. We are here to help. And experts like Rob make our job easier, because if we don't have the answer, we know we have someone in the chapter that can help. So thank you so much. And I hope to see you again at a future seminar.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Bye-bye
Enjoy.
now.
Bye-bye.